What's the good word, people? HatedGreatness here. And yeah, Joker Game, Episode 3, review, impressions, or whatever we call it. That's what's going down right now. So, that's the latest episode that's been released. And I just watched that for the first time yesterday. And then I watched it again earlier today before doing this recording, honestly. It's the simplest of the 3 episodes for the show so far, but that's not a bad thing. It's the simplest in terms of it's a clear-cut path until the very end. Things get deeper, more complicated toward the end. But basically, quick synopsis, this starts 2 years after the events of the previous episodes. At least it's supposed to, because it tells you that autumn 1937 is when the show begins and takes place. This takes place in 1939. And a member of the agency is in France. I believe it's Miyoshi, but I'm not sure, because he's wearing his hair in a way that he doesn't normally wear it, obviously, because he's in disguise. If you know who it is, let me know down below. I'm probably butchering it. I think it's the dude's name starts with a T, but it's probably Miyoshi. But anyway, a member of the agency is in France in 1939, and the events take place with the man waking up, and appears that he has lost his memory. And this is interesting because it kind of delves into a scenario that a lot of people don't really think about. Like, if you are a spy, what would a spy do in a situation where they suffer from amnesia, or they forget things just because of time? Because, you know, human memory isn't perfect. If you're undercover for 20 years, not only are you as a person gonna change, but your memory of the objective, the primary objective, or who you're doing it for, or who's even in charge, or your handler, all those things will change. So it's really interesting. It's a concept I've never really seen it fully explored with anything dealing with spies. But this episode, that's what they deal with. The D agency member is basically thrust right into the middle of France during a German occupation. Germany had just occupied France. And as you know, with the events that happened leading up to and during World War II, I mean, that actually happened. Germany invaded Poland, they invaded France, and a couple other places. And more of just a show of power. Like, they just went in there and said, we're Germany, we're in charge now. And a lot of those places, just because they didn't have the military might to fight back, or were completely caught off guard for the sake of peace, because we were just coming, the world wasn't too far removed from the previous World War that saw millions die. And they didn't want to see that happen again. So, but that's neither here or there. That's just the setting. It's a France occupied by Germany. So the D agency member, he's coming to, and he doesn't really remember everything. And it comes out that while he was unconscious, he was letting things about himself slip. Like, because of the fact that he was unconscious, and they were aiding to him, he got hit in the head. You'll figure out how when you watch the show, when you watch the episode. He gets hit in the head, and because of that, the 3 people end up trying to take care of him. When they go to take care of him, they've noticed things about him. Like, for instance, he had cotton swabs in his mouth to kind of alter the look of his face, to make him look different. He had glasses, but the glasses were purely cosmetic. Like, they weren't medical lenses. He didn't need the lenses. He didn't need glasses. So the glasses were clearly there for disguise purposes, or, well, cosmetics. But, I mean, when you put it together with the cotton swabs, it looks like a disguise. The man is Japanese, but when he was unconscious, he was mumbling things in Russian, apparently. It's like, wait, you're Japanese, but you're speaking fluent French to them. And they're saying he's doing so with a Parisian accent. So he's speaking French as if he was a native man from Paris, or Paris, I suppose they pronounce it. And while unconscious, he's mumbling things in German, or not German, sorry, in Russian. So it's like, this is a man who clearly knows multiple languages. He's doing things to kind of alter how he looks. And he's able to do things in second nature. Like, he was reciting weird series of numbers that they didn't know what they were about. He himself didn't even remember what they were for. He's able to read things in weird format. Like, when he wakes up, apparently there's a translation written on the wall, but it's reversed. And even though it's reversed, and it's in a different language, he's able to wake up, look at it, and read it, like, with no issue while like barely conscious. So they're starting to put things together that like the people who help him are like, who is this man? But they didn't really matter. Necessity, makes friends of us all. They were in a situation where they didn't have a lot of options themselves. Come to find out that they were members of the French Resistance. So they're not at liberty to be picky about who they choose to ally themselves with. There are 3 French people that he's working with. And I say working with, they're the people who essentially saved him after he lost consciousness, and the ones who were trying to nurse him back to health while he's trying to remember things. This episode, it's basically the story of him working toward gaining his memory back. And I'll be honest, like the only issue I have is how he gets his memory back. It's a very cartoony way. Without any spoilers, you know how like if you would like in cartoons when someone gets hit in the head really hard, they lose their memory? And then they get their memory back by being hit equally hard in the head, sometimes in the same exact spot or just anywhere in the head. First of all, to my knowledge, that's not even valid. Like, that doesn't work. If you just hit someone in the head really hard after they've lost memory, after hitting their head, I think they probably would either A, lose more of their memory or possibly just die. Who knows? Depends on how hard you get. But, I mean, it's a common thing that happens. Who knows? I mean, maybe it does work in real life. I'm not sure. But that's like the only flaw in this episode. Everything else is great. Like the pace is like once they start to delve into who everyone was and the rationale of why the actions were happening there, it really skyrocketed with certain events. Like he makes a makeshift bomb, and when I tell you how he made the bomb, I'm not going to actually. Now that I think about it, because I don't want to spoil it. But he makes a makeshift bomb out of material that I was kind of like, you can't make a bomb out of that stuff. And then when they explained how it was done, I was like, yep, actually you could. That's genius. Like, of course, leave it to a member of the D agency to be able to make something out of nothing. Even while not having their full mental faculties, because they don't truly remember who they are. But these are all things that are like second nature to them. And then while he's toward the end of the episode, they touch on how this happened. They bring up the notion of mental imprinting and how you could imprint things into your mind. Like you could imprint the mission and the details of the mission into your mind so that even if your memory becomes weak or is, being altered, you won't forget. It's imprinted there. Like it's like a hard copy. It's pretty well explained, pretty well done, honestly. And it's how he brings it all full circle. And then just a lot of the commentary on, like, it was weird. You get to see a member of the agency for once actually being human. And what I mean by that is, toward the end of the episode, he finds out that his mission is done, right? It's, you'll figure out what happens and all. I don't want to spoil any, because there's twists in this episode. There are things that I did not see coming, but I could see the hints of it. I just didn't put it together. Especially after watching it the second time, I was like, oh, I didn't notice that. Like, there's a gun that's presented. I'll put it like this. There's a gun. The only weapon the French revolutionaries have is a pistol. That's the only weapon they have on their person. And you come to find out why later. But this is the only gun they had. They needed a weapon. And they find out that the gun doesn't work. And he looks at the weapon. He takes it apart and puts it back together and is able to make the weapon work. And there's a scene where he's trying to decide which of the 3 people to give the weapon to. The revolutionary, there's 2 men and a woman. And he gives the gun to the woman. And I remember noticing that as peculiar, because I'm like, that's the one person who didn't ask for the weapon at all. It was 2 men that asked for the weapon. And B, her reaction to receiving the gun was one of just complete shock. It's a very important scene, and it really ties in to the end of his time with them. You'll see why he did that. You'll understand. Again, this show is amazing. That's all I can say. Even the action, we don't really see too much action, but we see more action in this than we did in the previous 2 episodes, and that's well done. There's a scene where I forgot his fake name. It's Ryusuke. I'm trying to remember his first name. It started with an S. I think it was Shimonia. I'm butchering it, but basically Ryusuke. He ends up, there's a guard in front of him. If you see the speed my man just like charged at my man, grabbed him, and hit that man with the most clean of judo tosses I've seen in animation. Just down, dude was out, finished. We need to get the hell out of here. Like, it wasn't done in some elaborate, like, oh, look at this super seismic, super lines in the back. No, it was just done in, like, this is what would happen. If you needed to stealthily take out one person, you could do that. Here's how you would do it. And it looked clean. And the sequence before that, with the explosion that I talked about, with the makeshift bomb that he creates out of nothing, when you find out how, you're like, man, my man is a genius. And to come up with that in that moment, like with the pressures on, the agency is nothing to mess. They're nothing to mess with. But yeah, just that final sequence where they meet, where he goes to meet his handler, but his handler is Yuki, and he immediately knows what that means. It's like, oh, if Yuki's here, then the mission is done. Like, I'm leaving, because that's the only reason they would bring him in, because he's in charge of the agency. You wouldn't send the head honcho to pull someone out of an operation unless it meant something. And then you come to find out, like, when he finds out that Japan, I mean, I would say this is a spoiler, but this is only a spoiler to people who don't know history. When he comes to find out that Japan sides with Germany in the war, he didn't really understand why that was. Like, he even tried to think of all, like, what statistical advantage do they have? Like, they're surrounded themselves by enemies. Like, why are we choosing Germany to align with? And, you know, that's a really good question. I mean, maybe we'll delve into that in the show. Or I wonder if it's going to stick to, I mean, the show's done a pretty good job sticking to the script in terms of what happened with history during that time period in the world and during the war. So I wonder if they're going to stick to that with why Japan joined the Axis powers and like the atrocious acts Japan committed during World War II to the other Asian countries. Because if you look at the total body count of people Japan killed in World War III, it doesn't even make sense. Like, I think they killed as many as people as that died in Germany or died in Europe. It's something astronomically crazy. It's insane. It might have been more, actually. I just remember seeing it and I was like, no, that's entire countries of people just gone. It was insane. And I mean, obviously every country has atrocities in its past, so I'm not holding that against Japan, obviously, and they don't do that now, so it is what it is. But it was just interesting. I want to see if they're going to actually bring any of that stuff into it, because this show is really focusing mainly on the mentality of, you know, the mentality of the individual, the responsibility of the individual, the mentality of a soldier, the mentality of the entire Japanese military and government, and its citizens, and how they view the emperor. Like, there's certain elements already we mentioned in episodes 1 and 2 where it's like, where I think it was Miyoshi actually who mentioned when he was talking about the religious aspects of tautology and how faith can be applied to anything. And it was him, or it might have been someone else, who mentioned the fact that no, it was someone else, and I can't remember his name right now. It escapes me. But he mentioned the fact that he says this in his eerie. He said, if Japan lost the war, and this even shakes up Sakuma. He's like, what if Japan loses the war? Because remember, in his mind, he doesn't think about Japan losing the war. Like, that's not an option. Like, they're Japan. In his mind, they can't lose. The emperor can't be wrong, right? So the guy brings up, like, if Japan loses the war, then the people in Japan will shift their allegiance and their faith away from the emperor to those who disbelieved in the emperor from the beginning. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And it's just interesting to hear that, because it's not even just Japan. That's the case with anywhere in the world. Like, look at how America elects presidents. Like, America will pick a president who promises to do something. That president gets in office. The ability of the president is actually limited. They can't do everything they promised, or they can't do everything to make people happy, or certain things happen that aren't even their fault, and people attribute it to them. So what happens in the following campaign or whatever? People vote for whoever is the opposite of that person. It's very reactionary. That's how people, especially mass people, because remember, people as a collective are a lot dumber than when they are in individuals. You don't think for yourself. You don't demand the same rationale and logic when you're with a group. You just demand hive mind mentality. You just demand groupthink. It's very dangerous. People, like dictators, have controlled countries with this. People are doing it now. Actually, it's not even just in terms of controlling a country. It's just simple things like social media and stuff like that, or fashion trends, or what's popular. Like, it's very much, these people think it's cool, so I'm going to think it's cool so I can be with these people and be cool. I mean, that's a very simplified way of what I'm describing with what was going on in Japan at the time with the war and whatnot. But you get how it translates. But all in all, this episode was really good, honestly. Like I said, the only issue I had was just this idea of just like, oh, I lost my memory. If I get hit in the head hard enough. But keep in mind, it wasn't intentionally, he doesn't hit himself in the head, or it doesn't happen intentionally. It's circumstantial that it happens to him. But it just so happens that circumstance led to him getting his memory back. I was kind of like, either he was joking and it flew over my head, or that's actually how he got his memory back, and that'd be problematic to me. Again, this is another series where you see, in this episode, you see someone who is very devout to a cause. Give up that cause because of emotional attachment to someone. And you don't see it coming until right when it happens. And then that's when I'm like, you know what? Yeah, again, another great man brought down by love. Though it might not have actually been love. It might have been lust. Who knows? All in all, what he did was stupid. And yeah, it doesn't really help the French people. But, again, like this show is just, it touches on so many different topics. That might even be considered a flaw in itself. The show, it touches on so much in every episode. The episodes are chock full of information, on theories, with quotes. Like, it's just, you have to watch these episodes more than once to get everything. Or you're watching it, pausing it, taking notes. Because that's what I started doing now, actually. Not just because I want to make videos, but just because I want to talk about these videos with my friends. And it's easier than watching the episodes 5 times to get everything. It reminds me of like when I was in college, and I would watch a video that I had to write a paper or something on. You watch the paper, or you watch the video, and when you get to a very important part, or you hear a really good quote or something, you write it down and keep going. So, yeah. Except this is way more fun because these episodes are amazing, and I love this anime. So, again, if you like this show, comment below and let me know why. If you don't like this show, comment below and let me know why. If you like this episode or didn't like this episode, comment below and let me know why. If you have any other theories, if you have any interpretations of actions, or if you have questions for me about what I thought about specific things, because I didn't touch on everything, again, because limited time and I don't want to spoil stuff, comment below and I'll answer them. I'm really good at answering comments, so I'm trying to stay on the up and up on that, actually. Actually, while I'm at it, let me give kudos to the people who commented on my commentary review with theories and just responses. Thank you. I found that I might enjoy responding to the comments as much as making the videos, maybe even more. So definitely leave comments below. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. As always, this is Hated Greatness. Peace.